All right, this is just a bit of an impromptu rant. I was not actually planning on doing this, but I was thinking about Star Trek recently, Star Trek Discovery, and I watched the latest episode, which in the UK is number 2, and something occurred to me as the part of the reason why I'm not enjoying Star Trek as much as I should do. And sometimes you have this moment of clarity of this is why I don't like what's going on. Just to give you an example of what I mean by moment of clarity, I used to watch a lot of anime back in the day, but all of a sudden I just realized I wasn't enjoying anime anymore. And in the moment of clarity, I realized why the main factor of why I wasn't enjoying anime, and it was the overacting, the emotional hysteria that is full in anime. I just couldn't get beyond the over the top. And once I realized that, this is why I don't like these shows anymore. And people who were around who like anime, they would now recommend the ones where that is absent, and I would enjoy the occasional. Oh yeah, that's good. That didn't have that much. So I think I've had this moment of clarity with Star Trek Discovery. I think this applies to a couple of other shows, but I'm going to stick to Star Trek Discovery. I, as a person, have always believed more in logic than emotion. I always think that when you're going to make a decision, logic works best. I think emotion should come secondary. I don't think you should always act 100% with 100% emotion and 100% logic and no emotion, because then that can lead you down a dark road if you just use pure emotion. That's a pure logic. Emotion should only be used as a check on unadulterated logic. Hence, okay, I'd say the problem is my neighbor. Logically, I should go and kill him. No. Emotion says, no, that's wrong. Your moral sense is, you shouldn't do that. But I think logic should be comes first before emotion. Emotion should be used to check, like empathy. Okay, this is my solution logically. How does it affect other people? Fine. That's where I think emotion and empathy should come into it. What I've realized now is that in Star Trek, especially Discovery, emotion is the number one factor in making decisions that they do. And that's what I think, that's one of the main issues that bugs me to the hell. We are going to go and rescue somebody, fine. Oh my God, we'll rescue this one person, but I'm going to risk the 3,000 people on the ship. And when I say risk, it's not like a 5% risk. It's like almost 90% sure that they're all going to die, but there's a 5% sure chance that they won't die and we'll save this one person. That's an emotional reaction that makes no sense. And you get lots of this in Discovery. You have a person who's not fit for a job, who will make an emotional appeal to the captain, and they will cave in based on an emotional appeal. Whereas logic indicates this guy is not fit for that role. And most of the time, they are not fit for that role, but then there's a Hail Mary that comes in, and like pure luck, they survive. And it gets justified. And I just realized this is what happens in Star Trek Discovery a lot. That really winds me up. Now, ironically, in the last episode, there's a president of the Federation. Actually, and I think this is where my moment of clarity came for, made this point when talking to Michael Burnham and saying that Michael Burnham is not fit to lead. So they're planning to build a new fleet of ships, and Michael Burnham thought, yeah, thanks for considering me, but I don't want to go. And the president said, actually, I wasn't going to pick you. I've seen you in action. You are not fit for the role. You don't have the Q Jones, and that's because everything for you is based on emotion. And especially, I thought, hang on a minute, yes, this is almost like a meta take on the whole franchise itself. And I found it, and I was like, oh my God, this is one of the number one problems I have with this show. Now, there's quite a few other shows nowadays out there, and it seems there's a trend, and sometimes this gets all mixed up with wokeism. Like, it's like the new Bond film. Let's talk about the heartstrings. Let's talk about, and then people think they're showing lots of love scenes between, and so I do quick diversion into one, but let's bring it back to Star Trek. So a lot of people complain that Star Trek is too woke. This that Star Trek has always been woke. That's part of, to me. I mean, I'm using the word woke now, unironically, so I'm not using it in a bad sense or in a good sense. And it says that they talk about things that are problematic in the society. They talk about black. Back in the day, it was racism. Nowadays, it's things like LGBTQ rights, trans, all that kind of stuff. Star Trek has always been about that. If you've got an issue with that, you shouldn't really watch a Star Trek. Now, the problem I have, and why people always focus on this woke bit, and I think it's not actually the wokeness. It's that because of this whole thing of putting emotion over anything else, they love focusing on a lot of the emotion of things. And obviously, now we have a trans couple. I think it's a trans couple. A trans couple. I think that's the right term. In Star Trek, and when they want to, and a lot of time when they show this couple, they don't show them doing it. And this is another thing that annoys me. This couple are not really shown to be that effective. Apart from one half is always he's the new Wesley Crusher, super smart, something like that. But they don't really do much. They don't bring much. I just find them boring. That more anything, but they get a lot of focus, and a lot of focus is always about the emotional tugging on the string. And I think that's why. And then people, I think a lot of people, like, because they didn't like that emotional bit, they just realize that when those two people come on, they're not enjoying those scenes, and then they attribute it that they don't like the woke scenes. But I don't think it's actually being woke. There's nothing wrong in being, in dealing with issues in society that should be dealt with. Star Trek is always at the forefront of that. I just think it's the fact that a lot of this, and I've picked on these two guys, but it's the same with Michael Burnham, constantly crying. She's always constantly crying. I don't think 2 episodes can go by without her crying. And it's this. I just realized it's the fact that emotion is the driving force in this version of Star Trek. It's all about emotion. Now back in the day when Star Trek, and I'm a big Next Generation fan, and based on what I said about logic and emotion, it's not a surprise that my favorite character was Data. And if you go back to the classic Star Trek, you also had the Kirk and Spock. The logic versus pure emotion, just pure raw action of Kirk. That has always been at the heart of the best Treks for me. I was not a big fan of DS9. I had my reasons. I won't get into that. Voyager I enjoyed, but I just thought it was okay, but I don't think it was one of the stellar ones. Now, and I started to think, am I just missing this whole constant talk between logic, the debate in Star Trek, which is focusing a lot about logic and emotion? Because if I look at Discovery, it is absent. Even though Burnham, initially, when they first introduced her, seemed to be a product of a society that's full of about logical thought, but she was a human and had emotions, that seems to be gone away. That's gone away. And right now, she's more emotional than almost anybody else in the show. And I'm thinking now, and there's no real logical counterpart to that. There's no counterpart to the logical. Her first officer, which is now going to be Suru, is all emotion as well, and they're all talking about feelings and all that. Again, exactly the same thing. So I think I've just realised, and this is a lot of rambling, and even as a Star Trek, you have no interest in what I'm talking about. But I think this is where me personally, it's the main disconnect for me. I mean, there's this other side issues about how everything's about Michael Burnham, always about Michael Burnham. But I think if this was not there, I wouldn't mind that other aspect that much, because to be frank, I think the original Star Trek was mostly always about Kirk and Spock. Next Generation did a better job of spreading the love, and I think Discovery have to do that. We don't really know the crew, if I'm being honest. Beyond Tilly, Burnham and Suru, a lot of the crew, a lot of the members, the first, when I say members, I'm not the guys on the bridge. You don't really get to see the backstory a lot. Or Shegun, for argument's sake. I mean, I'm biased towards knowing her back end because she's Nigerian. She's obviously got a Yoruba name. And they made a comment at one point about how I think she's from some kind of religious background, but that was it. And even in that show, they didn't really use it to that great effect. I would love to know more about her. And I think she's got the acting chops to pull it, for us to see more of her. Because I remember the Mirror Universe episode from last season, and she was total badass in that. But it's, I just thought I should say this out there, and this has gone on for 10 fucking minutes. Sorry guys, I'm sorry for boring you. I'm out.